Okay, let's dig into this. We've been looking at some really um, fascinating source material. It lays out a pretty provocative argument, actually.
Yeah, it really does. It's all about how AI is, well, hitting those professions we always think of as, the absolute top tier
Yeah.
law, medicine, finance, engineering do.
Right, the elite professions. But what grabbed me from the sources is this specific angle. It's not just saying AI is taking jobs, which we hear a lot about.
Mm.
It's arguing for something maybe more subtle. The sources call it unbundling.
Exactly. Unbundling. And the implication they draw is potentially huge, maybe even the end of prestige for these roles that have been, untouchable for so long.
The end of prestige.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big statement. Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's unpack what the source material is telling us about this, well, this quiet revolution that seems to be underway.
And crucially, what it might mean for you listening.
Yeah, definitely.
And, what really struck me reading through this stuff was how it starts. It doesn't just jump into theories.
No, it uses a story, right, to show this isn't some far-off future thing.
Precisely. It makes it clear this is happening, like, right now.
Yeah, they tell this really vivid story about Jonathan Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
He's described as a partner at a big New York law firm, the kind whose judgment and experience is billed out at thousands an hour.
Right. That's been his value proposition for years.
But the source says his most powerful tool now. It isn't just his legal brain or decades of knowing precedent.
No, it's quite different. The source describes this scenario where Sterling has this super complex regulatory question spanning, 4 different jurisdictions?
Yeah.
Something that, traditionally would mean weeks of work, research, memos, a whole team digging through things.
The classic junior associate grind work, basically.
Exactly. But instead of farming it out to them, the source says he just types this complicated query into, what was it called? Casey, an AI platform the firm uses.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker from the source material. 45 seconds later, not weeks, not days, 45 seconds. Casey delivers this synthesis, relevant precedents, statutes, even a risk assessment. And the source really emphasizes this point. It wasn't just fast, it was arguably more comprehensive than what a single junior associate could pull together, especially that quickly.
45 seconds. That's,
Yeah.
well, it's almost hard to believe. And the really pointed detail the source adds is that the junior associates, the ones with the massive student loans banking on those entry-level roles,
Yeah.
they never even saw the file. It just bypassed them completely.
And the source uses that anecdote, that specific story, as more than just, an interesting case. They frame it as a signpost. This is already happening, they say, across these high-skill fields.
And it's not just anecdotes, right? The source material connects this to broader data.
It does. It points to reporting just from this past spring, actually, showing a really significant drop. They call it steep, alarming decline in available entry-level jobs, specifically in law and finance.
And the key distinction the source makes here, which I thought was important, is that this isn't your typical recession dip. It's not just cyclical layoffs.
No, it's framed as something more fundamental. Efficiency-driven disruption, I think was the phrase.
Right. And it's hitting, as the source puts it, the foot soldiers first, the junior ranks, the very people who are supposed to be learning the ropes.
Yeah, exactly. What's really fascinating, though, when you dive into this material is how they put this moment into, a much bigger historical context.
Ah, the historical parallel.
Yes. The sources argue, look, this kind of disruption, where technology just completely upends a prestigious, established role, we've actually seen this movie before.
Yeah. They bring up examples like scribes.
Yeah.
Back in medieval times, hugely important, prestigious job, right?
Yeah.
They were the gatekeepers of knowledge because they copied everything by hand.
Mm-hmm. Immense power.
Then along comes Gutenberg and the printing press. And poof,
Yeah.
that whole profession, its status just sort of collapses.
Or, another one they mentioned, those really skilled textile artisans, before the Industrial Revolution, masters of their craft, vital to local economies.
Right.
And then automated looms come in, and suddenly that deep, hands-on expertise becomes, much less valuable almost overnight. The source uses these to show how fast value can shift when the underlying tech changes.
And they don't stop in the distant past. They bring up more recent examples, too.
Yeah, things maybe more in living memory, like travel agents. Their whole value was access to booking systems and information.
Right.
Then online travel sites arrived.
Or typists with word processors. Or even retail stockbrokers, largely replaced by online trading platforms.
Right. In every case, the source says the technology basically removed the need for the human gatekeeper.
So what's the common thread the sources pull out from all these examples, connecting them to AI now?
Well, they argue that any profession, really, whose core value relies on having exclusive access to codified knowledge or repeatable process, is inherently vulnerable.
If you know something specific
Yeah.
or can do a specific repeatable thing really well.
That others can't easily access or do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the potential vulnerability. And here's the really sharp, maybe counterintuitive point the source material makes.
Go on.
Prestige does not protect it.
Ah. So being seen as elite isn't a shield.
Not only that, the sources actually suggest prestige might be the opposite. It could be a signal of vulnerability.
How so?
Well, the argument goes like this. When a profession's knowledge and methods become so well understood, so standardized, so respected that they achieve that prestige,
Uh-huh.
they've basically created the perfect conditions for automation. They've defined the rules so clearly. If something is teachable and can be written down into rules or processes codified, then a machine can potentially learn it.
And if a machine can learn it and do it efficiently,
Then parts of that prestigious role become replaceable, which leads right into this concept the sources call the high-skill trap.
okay, the high skill trap. What's the trap?
It's deeply ironic, according to the sources. Think about it. These elite fields, law, medicine, finance, consulting, estate, they've spent decades doing what?
Standardizing things.
Yeah.
Best practices, performance benchmark.
Exactly. Standardizing best practices, benchmarking performance, reducing errors through systematic frameworks. All that effort to refine and codify their expertise, make it more reliable, more teachable.
Right. Seems like a good thing.
It was. But the source argues it's that very work, that systematization, that now makes them prime targets for AI. They've inadvertently drawn the blueprint that AI can now follow.
They mapped out their own disruption. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get more specific then. The sources mention examples beyond that lawyer, Sterling. What about in law more generally?
Yeah, they definitely do. They talk about big global firms like Allen and Overy integrating AI called Harvey, which is apparently based on GPT-4.
All right.
And Harvey isn't just like a glorified search engine. The sources say it can draft complex legal documents, summarize huge volumes of text, do sophisticated research.
Tasks that traditionally.
Justified hiring, as the source puts it, armies of junior associates. And then there are tools already widely used, like Kira Systems or Luminance, for contract review. They use machine learning to tear through documents way faster than humans can.
Okay, so law is clearly feeling it. What about medicine?
Similar patterns. The sources discuss Google's MedPal MM2 being tested in places like the Mayo Clinic. Apparently, it's getting really good at answering complex medical questions, sometimes performing on par with human experts in tests.
Impressive. But is it changing roles yet?
Well, the sources highlight radiology as a key example. The traditional role of the radiologist as the sole interpreter of, say, an MRI or CT scan, that's shifting.
How so?
The sources describe it as becoming more of a partner with an AI. The AI isn't just double-checking, it's designed to spot things humans might miss.
Like what?
The sources mention detecting subtle, early-stage disease patterns that might be invisible even to a trained human eye. AI can see the unseen, as they put it. That fundamentally changes the diagnostic process and what it means to be an expert radiologist.
That's a huge shift. And they also mentioned AI chatbots.
Right. Companies like Babylon Health using AI for initial diagnostic interactions, handling millions of them apparently. That takes away a lot of the routine work GPs used to do.
Okay, law, medicine. What about finance?
Well, finance has used complex algorithms for ages, right? The sources mention BlackRock's Aladdin platform as a prime example, but now they're layering generative AI on top of these systems.
To do what?
Things like enhancing risk modeling, automatically generating detailed report summaries from raw data, even drafting initial investment ideas or theses for analysts to review. Again, automating tasks that used to take up a lot of human time.
So across all these fields, law, medicine, finance, the common theme the source keeps coming back to is it's not total replacement, not yet anyway.
Exactly. It is, and this is the key phrase from the sources, unbundling them.
Unbundling.
Piece by piece. AI is identifying and taking over specific tasks within these professions, usually the repeatable, data-heavy ones. The tasks that, frankly, generate a lot of the billable hours and form the economic bedrock of these roles.
It's eroding the billable tasks, as the source puts it, undermining the foundation.
Yeah, it's not like AI is showing up at the law firm door saying, I'm here to be the partner. It's more like it's taking over document review first, then legal research, than drafting basic contracts.
So it's not a big bang, more like a slow dismantling, death by 1,000 cuts almost.
That's very close to how the source describes it. They call it death by unbundling, explicitly saying it's not a frontal assault. They even use a Jenga analogy.
Ah, okay. Pulling out specific blocks.
Right. Removing tasks like document review or routine diagnostics might not make the whole profession collapse instantly, but it definitely weakens the structure. It changes the game for those who remain.
But surely there's pushback. What about the parts of these jobs that feel, uniquely human? Judgment, empathy, ethical reasoning. The sources address that, right? The best argument against this.
They absolutely do. They acknowledge that argument, which centers on things like, sophisticated human judgment, the ethical weight of decisions, counseling clients in crisis, understanding psychology, building trust. All undeniably crucial.
And the sources agree these things are real and valuable. But there's a but.
There's a big but. Their counterpoint is sharp. Disruption doesn't require replacing the whole. It only requires displacing the profitable parts.
Ooh, okay. That's key.
Yeah. So maybe you still need that top litigator for the actual courtroom drama or the high-stakes negotiation, but all the prep work, the due diligence, sifting through mountains of documents, summarizing regulations.
The stuff that used to employ lots of people and cost clients a lot of money.
Exactly. The sources say AI is increasingly doing that stuff and doing it, quote, faster, cheaper, and in many cases more accurate than the humans who used to do it.
So it directly attacks the traditional way these professionals built their careers and justified their fees, mastering complex knowledge, doing laborious, time-consuming work.
Precisely. Which leads the source to pose this really challenging question. What happens when the machine's judgment, trained on vastly more data, tens of thousands of cases, actually starts to outperform the partner's intuition, which might be based on, just hundreds or maybe a few thousand experiences?
That's a fundamental challenge to the idea of human expertise itself in these areas.
It is, and the sources argue this isn't just about individual jobs or salaries. It could shake up the whole system. They say it threatens the very infrastructure of the prestige economy.
Wow. Okay, what does that infrastructure include? They talk about higher education, don't they?
Big time. They float the idea of a potential higher education implosion. Well, think about the business model of elite universities, especially law schools and medical schools. For decades, they've been the gatekeepers, right? You pay a huge amount of money for the credential, which unlocks access to these high-paying, prestigious jobs.
Right. It's an investment.
But the sources argue that whole model is poised to collapse. Why? Because if those lucrative entry-level and mid-level jobs that graduates relied on to pay back their massive loans, they mention $300,000 degrees if those jobs are being unbundled or disappearing.
Then the ROI on that super expensive degree just vanishes.
Exactly. The value proposition breaks down.
And that connects to another point they make, credential collapse.
Yeah. For generations, that fancy degree, that license, that certification, it was the signal. It told everyone you had the expertise.
It was the proxy for competence.
Right. But if the sources are correct, and for many specific problems, the AI is actually the more effective problem solver. What does that expensive piece of paper really signify anymore?
Does the signal still work?
The signaling system breaks down, is how the sources put it. How do employers or clients judge competence and authority in that world? It becomes much murkier.
And the ripples go even wider, according to the sources. They talk about socioeconomic reverberations.
Yeah, think about all the industries and services that have grown up around these high-earning professions.
Right.
Well, prime real estate in big cities where these firms cluster, luxury goods markets, private schools parents can afford because of those high salaries, even at things like high-end gyms, specialized consultants, the whole ecosystem.
Okay.
If compensation and job security in these core elite professions start to contract because of this AI unbundling, the sources predict pretty significant knock-on effects for all those supporting sectors.
They use that historical parallel again, don't they, about weaving?
They do. It's powerful. The collapse of artisanal weaving didn't just change how fabric was made, they write. It restructured entire economies. The suggestion is we might be seeing the beginning of a similar scale of restructuring, but this time at the top end of the knowledge economy.
That paints a pretty stark picture. So amidst all this potential disruption, this unbundling, this challenge to prestige, what's the way forward? What does the source material say about what will survive? Who actually thrives in this new environment?
Well, interestingly, they say it's not necessarily going to be the people with the longest resumes, the ones who've just accumulated the most traditional knowledge over decades.
Okay, so not the old guard necessarily.
Not automatically, no. The sources are pretty clear. Survival and success will come down to those who adapt
Adapt how?
by fundamentally changing how they see AI, not as a threat or just a tool to be delegated to, but as a team member, learning to work with it effectively.
Which leads to this idea of a completely new kind of expertise emerging.
Exactly. The sources have this great line, paraphrasing slightly. The star litigator of 2035 won't be the one who memorized the most precedent. It will be the one who can ask the AI the smartest question.
Ah, so the skill shifts from knowing everything to knowing how to query the machine that knows everything.
That's the core idea. The sources call it the dawn of a new kind of expertise. An expertise rooted not in what you know, but in how you work with what the machine knows. Value shifts towards leveraging these incredibly powerful tools in sophisticated ways.
Okay, so boiling it all down, the central thesis the sources put forward is kind of stunning. It's that prestige is not an asset,
Yeah, it is a liability.
a liability, because it signals.
What? It signals that a profession's value is so well understood, so respected, so codified, that it's become a clear, stable target for automation. The very factors that created the prestige have also laid the groundwork for disruption. Once the blueprint of expertise is drawn, they argue, the machines can be built.
Wow. And they end by circling back to history one last time.
That classic line. History doesn't repeat itself, but in the case of elite professions, it may rhyme.
A powerful thought to leave us with.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to quickly wrap up what we've unpacked from this deep dive into the source material. The core argument is that AI isn't just coming for jobs. It's strategically unbundling the profitable, repeatable tasks within professions like law, medicine, and finance.
Right, and this process challenges the very basis of their long-held prestige. It could shake up higher education and the value of credentials, and potentially cause wider economic shifts, echoing technological disruptions we've seen before.
But the path forward, according to these sources, isn't resistance, it's adaptation. It's about evolving expertise from simply knowing things to knowing how to work with AI.
Yeah, seeing AI as a partner and focusing on the skills needed to leverage machine intelligence effectively, that seems to be the key takeaway.
So, turning this back to you, the listener, what does all this mean for you? How does this idea that expertise itself might be shifting from what you know to how you work with what the machine knows? How does that resonate in your own work, your own career plans?
Yeah, if these sources are onto something, and the premium shifts towards asking the right questions, collaborating with AI, maybe synthesizing its outputs, how should you be thinking about building your own value, your own skills moving forward?
Something definitely worth mulling over as we navigate this changing landscape. A lot to think about from this deep dive.